Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm Zeus Caravella, and I'm here on site at VMware Explore 2023 in Las Vegas. I'm here at the Veeam stand with Anthony Spiteri. You're the regional CTO for APJ, but you're actually more than that, right?
That's it. Yeah. It's a double-barreled title that we have. So regional CTO APJ, but also lead cloud and service provider technologist. From a global perspective, looking after our cloud and service provider products, working with our partners and our customers to bring that well together.
Yeah, and I was excited to come by the booth and talk to you guys because you guys are the de facto standard when it comes to backup and recovery. Obviously the show, lots and lots of data in the VMware ecosystem, so you play a pretty important role, I guess, in most of their customers. So first of all, it is an interesting show this year. It's the first one they've had since the Broadcom acquisition. Well, it's the second one, I guess.
Kind of second one,
yeah. And then, but it's first full year for their CEO, Raghu.
Yes.
What'd you think of the show?
Look, I think it's
some of the announcements. Yeah.
Look, I think it's a different show than what we're used to in the VMworld sense, right? But compared to last year, much more exciting, much more confidence in where they're going. I think from a directional point of view. Last year, obviously, with that lure of Broadcom, there was a little bit of unsurety. I think this year, yes, it's still going on, but I think they know where they're going to be, and they've really tried to target the multi-cloud universe, and also AI has obviously been pretty big. I mean, it's big in 2023, right? So they had to kind of go down that path because otherwise they're missing out compared to the other major vendors. Yeah,
well, that was the interesting thing, that in this event, there were really two defining themes of the event. There was lots of product announcements below it, but there were two themes that I think defined the show. One was multi-cloud, and the other I said is private AI. So let's talk about those. Now, when it comes to multi-cloud, I think the way I've thought about it historically is customers to date have been using multiple clouds, but that's not really multi-cloud. We create a single cloud fabric that spans multiple clouds and edges. And so if that vision comes true, what kind of challenges does that introduce for customers?
Number one, I love that you use multiple cloud. It's something that I started using a couple of years ago. I actually heard it from someone at Seagate who was doing cloud-based object storage, and she mentioned
they're very different, right?
Very different, right? And actually today, the argument is everyone is potentially using multiple clouds, because the theory of multi-cloud is that you span an application or a set of business apps across a multiple cloud to deliver the same application, so a database here, a front end there, whatever it might be. So in a multi-cloud universe, I think we've been talking about, in VMware specifically, I remember even back in the early 2010s, that concept of one cloud that they were talking about. The theory's been around for a long time in terms of being able to take an application and actually make it portable across different platforms, different cost centers, and move it, with ease effectively. I don't think we're quite there yet. I still don't believe we are. There's a number of challenges from a technical perspective, but also I think enterprises, customers, they don't really desire that either. I don't think it's something that they would actually find useful from the point of view of, I think it adds over inefficiencies, overheads, cost questions, and whatnot. So yeah, it's a really interesting scenario.
And so from a data perspective though, the thesis if we get there is that you would actually have more data in more places that would become portable, right? And so how do you guys help with that?
From the point of view of what we do, being agnostic of hardware, software driven, we can be installed anywhere effectively, and our platform shows that, right? We've got not only Veeam backup replication for the vSphere sense, we now span all the different sort of major cloud providers, as a service player, M365, Salesforce even. So we're really at Kubernetes as well, which is very important, because that's a very important way in moving forward in terms of how applications are going to be
you brought that in with Kasten, right?
Yeah, exactly, how Kasten has got that. So we really do cover a wide breadth of that's okay, it's alive, we're okay. It covers a lot, we cover a wide breadth of applications no matter where it is. So when the application sits there, it's generating data. Or what we're seeing today, we'll talk about AI later on, but it's also pooling data to make data more useful, unlocking that data. So we're really there at the center of all that as a company that literally protects that data no matter where it is.
So in a sense, you could almost do multi-cloud light before, right?
We do, yeah. One of our greatest things about Veeam is our portable data format. We talk about mobility in the data format from one of our biggest benefits as a company. That means that you back it up. Once you put it into the data format, it becomes inherently portable, and you can then recover it from. So if you back up into a VMware infrastructure, you can recover that workload into AWS Cloud, Google Cloud, even onto different hypervisors, right? So it's a really cool thing that we've got, but you're right, it enables that by default without any specific hardware.
Okay, now what about private AI? To me, that was, I like the term in that I do think for most customers, AI will be a hybrid model where not everything's going to be in the cloud, not everything, but you'll have a lot of private data that you'd want to run algorithms. So from that perspective, what kind of challenges does that bring, and then how do you help with that?
Yeah, obviously 2023. I mean, OpenAI.
The year of AI.
Year of AI.
Well,
right?
it's not really. The year AI became popular, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, OpenAI drove that, right? And it's interesting to see every major sort of big software vendor have used it in all of their big events. Microsoft did it in Inspire. I'm sure Google's going to do it next week. At Next, it's going to be big, right?
That was big there. Cisco Live, HPE,
Live, and it makes sense, right? Because in effect, it's what people want to be able to do in terms of natural language processing, how to get data quicker via just natural ways. For us, it's really interesting because I think it just elevates the conversation around data and the criticality of that data. So not only now are you talking about data just being generated from an application being backed up, but then the potential is when that data sits on a repository, then you can almost unlock that for AI purposes. You can import it into a data stream for a model and you can do things with it. VMware have taken this approach of, let's think about this from a business enterprise perspective, from a security perspective, from an IP perspective. The biggest question that things like OpenAI would actually offer for you is, who owns the IP? When you put your data into that platform, who owns it? And it's a really interesting question. It's existential in a way because the natural language processing models create the data that you get in a way that can't be reverse engineered, right? So you can't tell where it came from. Big problem for enterprises, I think, from a proprietary perspective.
Yeah, I do think it's going to bring some big problems in, but I think it's the direction the industry is going in. I actually think all this marketing around AI eventually will stop too, because I think it'll eventually...
there's a hype, isn't there? There's a hype that goes down,
Well, it's a little bit like you think back to the early 90s or whatever. We used to go to internet conferences.
Yes.
Nobody goes to internet conferences anymore because it's standard methodology.
And even a couple of years ago with blockchain, right? We don't talk about blockchain. No. It's still there, but we don't talk about it.
But I do think it's good to see the industry moving forward.
Yeah.
Last topic I'm going to ask you about is ransomware.
Yeah.
Right. So I know the number one use case for Veeam is ransomware by far, I believe now, right? Ransomware recovery. Sorry.
Recovery. Not ransomware. Let's clarify that.
And at the show, VMware announced their own ransomware recovery product. It didn't seem quite as broad as the way you guys go to market. So talk about it and Veeam's ransomware recovery and how the two perhaps overlap, but where they are different.
Yeah, so it's definitely overlapping, and we understand that our big partners are going to create their own offerings. That's the nature of the game, right? Even if you look at the public clouds, they've got their own cloud-native backup suite built on top of that. In this case, that product is built for VMware Cloud and AWS based on their Datrium acquisition. So it's basically looking at the way to bring data into a VMware Cloud and AWS if you have an incident on a premises. So you spin up a VMware Cloud and AWS, make sure that the data stream is clear using some of their technology that they've built into that stream based on an object storage restore and bring it in. Now that's cool, it works, and it's actually pretty good. But from our point of view, obviously, we're a little bit more broader than that. We can offer that across a breadth of more platforms. In fact, any platform that you can install the Veeam backup replication software to. So what we've got coming in 12A though, very, very cool stuff. So we've got our inline ransomware detection coming as our next A release. Hopefully towards the end of the year that'll be out. So that's really just taking a backup, and then when you do the next backup from an incremental point of view, being able to look at the blocks of data as they pass through our proxy and detect levels of entropy in that data, which is basically encryption. Okay, and if we pick up a certain percentage of encryption, we'll then flag that as being malicious, and the administrator needs to take a look at it to see if it is actually going to be problematic to them, because what we want to ensure is that they have a clean data stream to recover from if they do get hit. That's what it's all about, right? Yeah.
So who would use the VMware service versus your service?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the type of customer. Obviously, if they're a net native VMC customer, they could tend to use that. But then I think that's a very narrow look at that sort of world. So if they wanted to just do a purposeful use case for recovery, VMC with that new service is the way. But from our point of view, again, if you want to take that from a further perspective, we talked about data being multi-platform.
Have a broader enterprise strategy.
And a broader way to think about recovery as well, because with us, you can do instant recovery, you can replicate, you can restore, you can take it across cloud. So there's a lot more to us in terms of the recovery.
All right. And well, thanks. I just have one more question. And so put your, Kreskin hat on and look in the crystal ball. What do you expect over the back half of the year then for in the area of AI or ransomware, or if you want to give a prediction?
I feel like AI is going to settle down. A lot of people are bringing it in from a generative sense. So bringing generative AI into the products, and I think it will just become more. So actually, here's the thing. I think enterprises will work out how to integrate it better into their actual workday. That is through policy, through actual official sort of policies through businesses to say when a customer could use it, when an employee can use it for certain purposes. So that's a generative AI point of view. In terms of just a general industry, I think ransomware will continue to grow. We know that. Sophistication will
It's crazy.
We thought it might stop right, but I think the greatest thing where we are now in the industry is that more people are aware of it. So the more people almost expect it to be a thing that they will have to come up with at some point over the next 12 to 18 months. In fact, it's almost guaranteed.
Yeah.
So with that, enterprises, customers, even our partners that offer our own services to their customers need to be aware of how to deal with that and leverage that the Veeam platform to be able to recover.
I do think that it's important that companies be proactive too. I interviewed one of your customers, the CEO of the city of New Orleans.
Oh yeah, know the one, yeah.
At Veeam, and she was saying that she tried to be proactive and go get budget for it.
Yes.
And they delayed, they got hit, right?
Big thing.
Yeah. And so had they been proactive, it would have saved them a lot of money and a lot of time, right? And so
I think that's the big. So I was going to say that's a huge thing about DR, right? I think everyone knows that you needed backup and you needed to take backup and maybe use a 3-2-1 rule to bring it off-site. That's kind of table stakes. DR replication, I still feel we haven't hit that inflection point where companies think that they need it. When they need it, it's too late, right? So we need to get
But that's historically how it got bought.
It's classic insurance, right? Like we don't really think you need insurance until you get hit by an insurance event.
Yeah.
It's completely in that wheelhouse. So I just feel we've got to be more outwardly outspoken about making sure that companies know that ransomware is real. It's not a question of if but when, and you need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, and I see the interesting thing about generative AI is it makes it easier for the threat actors to actually create ransomware, spoof your CEO's email.
Yeah.
I talked to one that happened to a reseller I know where the CEO sent an email to the company.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's usually the CEO that always does it.
Yeah. And it's hard for employees to ignore that. So
I think to that point, I'm not sure. At Veeam, my demo that I did on the main stage was our object storage backup.
Yeah.
And part of that demo was for me to use generative AI to create a ransomware script that actually ransomware.
That was very good.
Yeah. So I used the AI to basically create what was a very compelling ransomware event in that situation. That was me, and I'm not a very good coder or anything like that. So you think about the power of that in the guys that really want to do damage.
Yeah.
That's actually quite scary.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Anthony.
That's okay.
I will include the link to Veeam in the YouTube description below. Also, you had a very comprehensive ransomware report. That'll be in the YouTube description below.
Excellent.
And so, on behalf of Anthony, I'm ZS Caraval from ZK Research saying, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time from another show.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.